So the consequences of our glorious bootlicks of a president's war in Iran are starting to come home for the Western world. Right? So we go to war with Iran because Netanyahu told us so. As they say, regime change starts in Tel Aviv, apparently. Anyways, so we have gotten into this disastrous war in Iran because, I don't know, Netanyahu said snap, snap, snap. Dogs do not ask questions. Dogs fucking fetch, right? That's what the Israelis figure when they're talking to the Americans. So anyways, we started this war in Iran with no real plan. No idea what a win looks like, no idea what a loss looks like, no idea of what we are actually trying to accomplish here. What is so weird for me, being almost 50 years old, is, oh my God, this is like an onion version of the Iraq War. You know what I'm saying? Like he just comes out and he's like, the Iranian people need to rise up. And then he's mad after he started destroying Iran that the Iranian people are not rising up the way that he expects them to. He comes out and he says, we've won the war. Yeah, you can tell the war. You can tell we've won the war by the fact that Iran keeps launching missiles at Israel. Nothing says we won the war like the other side continuing to launch attacks against you. And I don't know, what is it? It is just a complete and utter idiocy. But the big problem for the real world, big problem for us back at home, is that this is choking oil supply. So basically 10 million barrels of oil have been taken out of the market, basically that quick, with the Strait of Hormuz being shut down. Beyond that, we are attacking Iranians' oil facilities. Iran is attacking everybody else's oil facilities. So, you know, oil, the lifeblood of modern society. You know how they talk about, data is the new oil, or AI is the new oil, or NFTs are the new oil. Yeah, you know what oil is? Oil is actually oil. Oil is actually oil. Yeah, it's funny how that is. And we need it. We need it for modern society. We need it for our modern civilization. This is what we have built. Oil is the foundation of modern societies. Whether you agree with it, whether you disagree with it, doesn't fucking matter. It is how it is, right? So anyways, the interesting thing now is that jet fuel is the first place where we're really starting to see major ramifications from the fuel shortage. Again, what's kind of fascinating when we think about oil is oil gets turned into fuels, and there's different fuels out there. There's jet fuel, there's diesel, and then there's a consumer grade gas most of us use. And the interesting thing is, although consumer grade gasoline is more expensive, it is not actually rising as fast as these other products. Jet fuel has gone through the roof. Diesel has already gone up significantly. And so I think that's going to be one of the interesting things with this whole degradation in the oil supply, where we're going to start seeing effects that seem outsized based off of what we understand. Like, you go to the gas station and gas prices are up by 50 cents. So you know that's going to cause some disruption. But you're not thinking it's going to be as major as it's going to be. And the reason is because diesel prices are up massively, right? So diesel, that's, how you get your food, how you get your products, how every item you get, comes to you, that's being driven with diesel. So if diesel goes to the roof, right, you're going to see an outsized impact from that you might not recognize. Again, if airline fuel goes through the roof, it has gone through the roof, you're going to see an outsized impact in ways that, again, you may not be expecting. But anyways, yeah, what we're starting to see here is airlines, and it's not just in Vietnam anymore. Again, one of the weird things with the Trump administration and America, nothing says racism like, we don't give a fuck about anybody else, right? You've seen Trump come out, oh, he is such a bastard. He's just a bastard, right? He's come out and he's been like, well, we have enough oil. We are a net exporter, so this will not affect us. So yeah, jackass, that's not how the global economy works, you stupid piece of shit. Oh, is this how you bankrupted your fucking companies? You didn't know what the fuck you were talking about? You senile fucking pants-shitting motherfucker? Anyways, the issue is, again, it's a global economy. Again, wherever we're going to be in 2035, right? One of the ideas with this whole Trump and tariffs and everything else is you might be going through pain now, but it will be better. It'll make it a better world in 2035. But then he also tells you how you're not actually going through pain now. But anyways, right? Thing is, it's a global market, so things like airline fuel and a lot of that other kind of stuff, right? This is a global thing. Again, when we are getting products, right? So many of the products that we get in the United States might be fine for oil, but we get a lot of food from other kinds of food. Again, we're not talking about big screen TVs. Oh, the cost of the big screen TV is gonna go up. Oh, boo-hoo, little fucking Gen Z motherfucker. Look, whatever. But here's the thing, like food, a lot of food comes from other countries, right? And so if the price of diesel and all that goes up in Mexico, if it goes up in Chile, if it goes up in Thailand, in a lot of places where we buy our food from, right, it's gonna have an outsized impact on us. But anyways, the thing we're seeing now is the airlines. Airlines are already starting to cancel flights. And you notice here, United. Again, this is not just a Zimbabwean airline or a Vietnamese airline or whatever else. This is an airline of real human beings. Human beings that actually matter fly this airline. Oh, it's horrible. It's only funny because it's true. It's true, that's how our politicians look at it. Anyways, airlines are starting to cancel flights as they face jet fuel shortages and rising prices brought on by the Iran war. The U.S. and Israel's war on Iran has disrupted supply chains, trapping oil and storage facilities across the Middle East. That has caused the price of oil to rocket past $100 a barrel and its availability to diminish. Jet fuel prices, as a result, reached $195 at the end of March, up nearly $100 from the end of February when the war began. So over 100% jet fuel prices are already up. And to be clear, we have not even started to feel the impact of this shit. Let's see. And as the war drags on, jet fuel is getting harder to come by for countries that don't produce their own or have limited supplies. I think this is going to be the other interesting thing with this whole disaster. Getting harder to come by. Right, so many times when we talk about these things like fuel supplies or whatever else, it always comes down to like cost. Like you can figure out how to afford it, right? Maybe you cut back here, maybe you do this, maybe you do that, but you'll be able to afford it. One of the interesting things that comes up is just what happens if there's a shortage? What happens if there's just fundamentally not enough jet fuel? What happens, like, no matter how much you bid, you can't get your hands on it? International Energy Agency Executive Director Fatih Birol said during a podcast interview earlier this week that the loss of oil in April would be twice what was lost in March, resulting in a growing scarcity of jet fuel and diesel. So anything we're talking about now, it's only going to get worse. There's going to be twice as much loss in April. We are seeing that in Asia, but soon, I think in April or May, it will come to Europe. European Airlines, Ryanair, Europe's largest airline, said it is considering reducing routes. The CEO said its fuel supply would be at risk if the war continues during an interview with Sky News. Quote, "We don't expect any disruption until early May, but if the war continues, we do run the risk of supply disruptions in Europe in May or June." And again, if you take a look at what's going on with the war, it's probably going to be going on for a little while. Lufthansa is also prepping for the worst. A spokesperson told Bloomberg the company has teams developing crisis response plans that could ground up to 40 aircraft, the spokesperson said. A spokesperson for Scandinavian Airlines said it would cut about 1,000 flights due to the surge in jet fuel costs. Quote, "The sharp increase in fuel costs is affecting the entire European aviation system." United Airlines CEO said in a recent memo to staff that the company would cut flights over the next 2 quarters. Quote, "In the short term, that means tactically pruning flights that's temporarily unprofitable in the face of high oil prices." Quote, "If prices stayed at this level, it would mean an extra $11 billion in annual expenses just for jet fuel," Kirby said in a message to employees. For perspective, in United's best year ever, we made less than $5 billion. Yep, that's the Trump economy. How do you like the Trump economy? So basically, the cost of fuel is going to go up by $11 billion. And the most profitable they've ever been was $5 billion. Yeah. Air New Zealand said it would cut up about 5%, or about 1,100 at the start of May. Vietnam Airlines, several airlines in Vietnam announced they would cut flights to mitigate fuel shortages. Vietnam Airlines suspended 7 domestic flight routes beginning April 1, a local state-run newspaper reported. The outlet reported that Vietnam Airlines will slash flight volume by 10% to 20% a month over the next financial quarter if jet fuel prices rise to $160 to $200 per barrel. So we are already seeing the cut in flights, and we're going to see the cost in flights go through the roof. And this is going to have the knock-on effect of just hammering the hell out of the economy. And again, I think about this. I'm here in Asheville. Asheville is dedicated to having a tourist economy. They don't want any other economy. We're not up to that industrial capacity economy. They just want to sell beer to tourists, right? And think about this. What happens when the flights get canceled? What happens to tourist locations when literally the tourists simply can't get there? The flights are canceled. What happens when the price of flights and those things go through the roof? Again, you think about one flight. One airplane full of people is 200 people or more. That's 200 people per flight bringing economic activity into an area, at least. And then think about that one airline is cutting 1,100 flights. And then you think about the knock-on effect with that. I do think it's important, again, to be thinking about, especially for technology professionals. I live here in Asheville. We are what I call a petaburb. Basically, we are an airline suburb, right? You live here, and then you fly to San Francisco or fly to a real city when you need to do real work. What happens when those flights get canceled? Again, I think about this here in Asheville. We have a regional airport. Our regional airport already sucks. Our regional airport sucked under Biden, sucks under Trump, and it's only going to get worse. What happens when the flights stop? What happens when the pathetic number of flights into places like regional airports becomes almost non-existent? And what does that do? Again, thinking about that with your architecture, thinking about that with your infrastructure, thinking about that with where your employees are located. If you're the boss of a company, do you still feel comfortable having employees that if you need to have a group in-person meeting, that they literally have to fly in to the office? So, I don't know. Some things to be thinking about. Don't worry. Israel does not give two shits how much of the world has to burn so that they can keep their pissant little gnat-ass speck of land. Mickey Mouse promised them that land thousands of years ago. So they will spare no amount of pain for the rest of the world to make sure that they get that little gnat's-ass piece of shit property. Again, how much worse is this gonna get? Because again, I don't see why Iran would surrender. There's no, it's weird. Like, again, you see this with racism. Again, this is where I talk about racism in the practical world, right? So when Russia attacked Ukraine, right? When white people attacked other white people, you'll notice in the news, you'll notice in the politicians, all the politicians, Democrat politicians, Republican politicians, everybody. It was like, we need to create a gold-plated road, right? A gold-plated bridge to retreat. Right, they played so like just the softest of gloves dealing with Putin. Putin goes in, starts massacring people in Ukraine, attacks all the stuff in Ukraine, and there was so much of this. Oh, well, what we have to understand, what we have to be careful about. Oh, we can't offend Putin, right? And now you deal with the Middle East. The Middle East is funny. You start attacking the shit out of people we don't consider white, and all of a sudden, the only thing that matters is absolute surrender by these people. And again, absolute surrender by the leadership in Iran would basically probably mean the death of the Iranian leadership. right? Absolute surrender by the Iranian people basically means that they would be under the boot of Israel for at least their lifetime. Again, it's interesting. The Israeli newspapers are now putting out this whole idea of they require a hegemony in the Middle East. Like they are now putting on the table that they should be the leaders of the Middle East. And basically anybody that fights back will be put under the boot of a bomb. And so think about that. The leaders don't want to die. The people don't want to be under the fucking boot of Israel. Why they still have the ability to fight again, even now. I mean, depending on apparently what intelligence estimates you're looking at, the U.S. we still feel that Iran still has 50% capacity. Their missile and drone is still at 50% capacity over 5 weeks of being bombed to hell and back. 50% capacity. Apparently, Israel thinks it's less, like they're at like 30% capacity, because there's this how we do battle damage assessment. I guess we feel that if we feel that the weapon systems are still intact but they're inaccessible, we still say that they exist. So basically there are weapon systems that basically tunnels have collapsed or whatever. So theoretically they could scoop the weapon systems out of the tunnel. So anyways, even the Israelis still think there's 30% of fully capable weapon systems that are available to use. Again, after 5 weeks of being bombed to hell and back by the most powerful military to ever exist, they still have at least 30% of functional capacity. Why in God, why? Why would they surrender? Why would they fucking surrender? And so that means this shit is only going to drag on. Our leader has our glorious bootlick, fucking pant-shitting coward of a president has no fucking plan. And this is going to have real ramifications. Again, it's one of those interesting things being an American. Like the United States, there's a lot of weird shit all around the world. But it doesn't really affect us. It's really weird. It's really weird. Like when the Gulf War was happening, remember when Iraq was happening? And basically Bush was telling us to go buy more shit. You know, all this stuff is going on in Iraq. You know, we're at war. And what we really need to do is go out and buy a new sofa. That's what we needed to do to be patriots. Like there's this weird thing, like even when we get in these military conflicts, like we don't feel it. I think this time we're gonna feel it. We're gonna feel it. So anyways, what do you think about this? What do you think about airlines already canceling flights? What do you think about this getting far worse? What do you think about our bootlick of a fucking president? Are you happier today with the state of Israel than you were 2 months ago? When you think about how you thought about Israel 2 months ago, and you think about how you think about Israel now, are they the same? Is there a little bit of difference there? How do you feel about Israel? Put your thoughts down below. Fuck Israel. Fuck Israel. Fuck Israel. Not another goddamn dime to that shithole regime. Regime change, apparently, starts in Israel. Anyways, see y'all later.